you can draw all the time. And I think Vuyolwethu Zungula was one of those who was like, okay, you know what? Let's just talk to the monetary aspect, and that'll also arrive. Vuyolwethu Zungula is here. Welcome, Vuyolwethu Zungula.
Thank you so much.
Our perspective. I did promise that when you do come to Johannesburg, that we're going to bring you back, and you had your manifesto in the Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
You've launched that. You've been here, but now you've had your regional. How was the crowd? Were you overly excited? Were you happy there? I mean, Jabulani, Soweto. It's not Umtata. It's not the Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
It's not generally where you would see, you know, your natural crowds. You were canvassing and campaigning in Gauteng. What was the outlook like?
It exceeded our expectations. It was a regional rally.
Yeah.
And because it was a regional rally, what we got for us is that Johannesburg, we expected plus minus 5,000 people. We got close to 8,000 people.
Yeah.
Just for a regional rally.
Yeah.
And for us, it was a big success. And it was not to rent a crowd. It was not people that were promised KFC or a bottle of beer for them to go there. It was people that were
Food
engaged.
parcels.
Food parcels. Because a lot of people know they go to these rallies unaware that they're even going to a political rally. They just sit there, they clap, all because they just want the food. But for us, if you were to listen to from the start to the end of the program, people were so engaged, people were clapping.
I looked at it close on 3 hours.
Yeah.
I looked at it.
And you know, the buses, I think one of the first buses arrived there around about 9 o'clock, and the program concluded at 4 o'clock, and still 4 o'clock, people wanted more, you know. So it shows how much people were engaged. And for us, I think it's it's something that is inspiring to find South Africans who are eager to contribute towards the betterment of society. Instead of people who've just given up on the country, they just want, in fact, they don't care about politics, they don't care about what happens in the country, but the crowd that was there yesterday, the spirit, the energy.
You know, Vuyo, you said you did the national launch, but you said you're taking it now to the regions and you're campaigning in the regions. Do you find that within, as a political party, that within provinces you have to deal with different issues per se, because Gauteng might be different than the Eastern Cape, might be different than the Western Cape. And for example, you know, when you look at Gauteng, for example, crime would be a big issue here. And hence, I think also your emphasis on a little bit also just emphasize that particular fact that crime is of a particular nature here. You know, me and you get into our cars and we're out here on the roads, and crime is a real issue for us out there. Do you find that as you've been hearing across the country, specifically to Gauteng, that you're having to deal with the issues separately, and that there are issues that are broadly national, but each province sometimes has particular issues that you're homing in on?
Yeah, definitely. I've been in Gauteng for the past 4 weeks, and crime is one of the biggest issues. You know, to give context to the issue of crime, last year, 27,000 people were murdered last year. That is in comparison to before 2021, when the war ended in Afghanistan, where 10,000 people were actually murdered, which goes to show that South Africa is worse off than places whereby there's an actual war. You are much safer than in a country whereby there's actual war than being in South Africa. The vehicle hijacking is a big issue. The robbings whereby people come to your house and they rob you. And to an extent whereby people are so worried, to an extent whereby they don't even know when they wake up in the morning, they go to work, whether they're going to make it. So that's why part of my speech, it was very clear to say we're not going to be apologetic about the question of dealing decisively with crime, because we can't dilly-dally around the problem, and we can't want to be politically correct with this problem, because the problem of crime does not require us to want to be politically correct or want to glide over the problem. It wants us to confront the problem that currently many South Africans feel that they are prisoners in their own homes. They feel that they can't enjoy the quality of lives because you're always looking behind your shoulder, because you don't know when crime would affect you. So that is why it becomes critical that we need to confront the problem of crime and make sure that people can enjoy their lives.
Which then brings me to and just confirm it for me, we don't have to stay long on it, just confirm it for me, the issue of the death penalty, that is an issue that you have not moved from.
Definitely. There is a death penalty, by the way, in the country. It's just that it is law-abiding, innocent citizens that are facing the death penalty every day. If 85 people are murdered every day,
is the crime issue.
yeah, it's, there is a death penalty. Now, people who are against the death penalty are actually protecting the ones that are actually implementing the death penalty on innocent people.
Let's go to Gauteng per se, because I want to deal with what you were dealing then with the people of Gauteng. So there's a lot of focus on Gauteng here, and you see, I was out in Hazyview this particular weekend, and I saw posters of the ANC, I saw posters of the DA, I saw posters of the EFF, I saw posters of Rise Mzansi, and I saw your posters, and nobody else. And those were the posters of those particular parties. So in essence, it seems as though you are out there, you're getting your posters out. Are people responding to you? And here in Gauteng, for example, responding to you and to the fact that you put your posters out? Is there an attraction to your party that says, we're working the ground and it's receiving results?
Yeah, wherever we go to communities, especially for people who've been following politics, they always say one thing. With the way we've conducted ourselves and how effective ATM has been in Parliament for the past 5 years, they've got hope that with an increased support, ATM would do wonders. That is why in a rally that was just for the region, we had more than 8,000 people that were there in Johannesburg. And after we shared those videos, there were people that were saying, we want you now to come to Mangaung, want you to come to Kwakwa, want you to come to Hertzbande. We've actually confirmed that on the 27th of April, we'll be going to eThekwini. So that is because there's appetite from the people. People want us to go to them because whenever that we take these podiums or we speak to the people, we always offer solutions, because I think that is what is missing in our politics. Politics in our country are made to be politics of spectacle, politics of theatrics, but ATM has proven for the past 5 years that it offers politics of ideas, because it is when we focus on the ideas that we get now to focus on the solutions that are needed to change things around for our country.
Politics of spectacle and politics of theatrical, as you pointed out. You've been in the National Assembly since what, 2019?
Yeah.
2019, established in 2018. Politics of spectacle, politics of theatrical. You've seen it. You've seen the song and dance. You've engaged it. People would give you credit, though, for bringing some of the biggest stories to Parliament, engaging those particular, elements. How hard is it, and would it be, I would put it to you, as a young party sitting within that particular space, that you would think going to Parliament, this is where we are going to solve the country's issues? Because I can promise you that had I engaged you in 2018, 2017, as you were thinking of going to Parliament, you would have said, I'm going to Parliament to change things and be different, and we're going to whatever. And then you get there, and then there's politics of theatrics and politics of spectacle. How have you stayed above that and beyond that and outside of that particular spectre?
We've been grounded as a party, and we've kept our resolve. There's people that were saying, hey, you're saying the right things, but you need to trend. So say something, do something for people to, to take note of you. But I was thinking, but that's not who we are. We're not now going to conform to those political standards simply because we want those politics of theatrics, politics of personalities. We want people to be attached to the ideas, to be attached to the solutions, to be attached basically to what we want to achieve to the country, because we want people to be anchored on where the country should be and the ideas that will take us there, instead of people being anchored on individuals or their personalities, because the past 30 years has shown us that politics of theatrics, personalities, has not taken the country, and it will not take the country anywhere. But if we change things around and we focus on the ideas, we're most likely to go very far. So we thought as a party that we are not going to be consumed by the system, because to make it in the system, you need to say wild things for you to trend. That's why even people were like, but you've got elderly people there, such as the president or the speaker. Sometimes you're very firm with them, but at the same time, you're very respectful. And I was saying, but there's no need for us to be disrespectful, because at the end of the day, Utato Ramaphosa is still, Utata is old enough to be my father. Similarly with the speaker. So for us, we've kept that resolve to say we are not going to lose ourselves in the process of wanting to succeed in this political space that is defined in a certain way.
Similarly with the speaker, and I'll get to that point in a second. Let's just go to 2019. 2019 would have been the first time you would have taken part in elections. In that particular election, 76,830 votes, you would have got 0.44 percentage of the vote. Seats, you've got 2 out of 400. That's in the national elections. Then you came to municipal elections. You got 189,943, 0.62%, and you got 53 councillors into that. That in that particular time, growth, an amazing amount of growth. Is that what you're seeing upwardly mobile, or do you define it as one was a provincial and one was a local? Because in a provincial, in a provincial/national election, one assumes you're going to get more. You got more in the local government here, so that obviously just talks to growth that you would have then had. I mean, those are impressive numbers for a political party that would have started out and got the 76 figure, and then immediately 2 years later you would have got 189. Just looking at those particular numbers, are you finding that you are seeing the growth, or that it's the work that you've put in essence, you anticipated, that the churches were behind you, whatever, or people first looked at you, wondered who you were, and now people are beginning to understand, who you are? What are you finding is leading to that particular growth path?
Firstly, it's organic growth. It is not an investment whereby we are taken to, there's a big media drive and, proper media support to get us, to plant into the minds of the people that this is a party to follow. Because for some of the parties, you can see that these people are actually assisted by the media to appear as if they are excellent leaders. But for us, everything that we've done it organically. People are shocked that I've never even done media training. Everything I speak or I say is a result of the interactions I have within the party and the citizens. And the major reason why there's growth, it is because people have been yearning for a party that is solution-driven, that is ideas-driven. Even if we identify what the problem is, the consequence of the problem, but let's spend most of the time detailing the solutions. And at the same time, because of our posture that we've never taken a posture of being anti-other parties. We differ with many parties on many issues, but we need to rise above the partisan politics to be able to say, let's find a way to work together, because ultimately, many parties, they state that they are there in parliament or they exist to serve the people. If all of us exist to serve the people, then we must find each other on issues that we agree on. So that posture of not being a party that is aloof or a party that is, isolated, has made people to relate with us. 2019, before the 2019 elections, I would go in public and no one would even recognize me or say anything. But currently, if I'm in public, people come to me and say, Vuyolwethu, you've done well, we're going to support you. Vuyolwethu, please keep on doing the good work that we're doing. We see a bright future in you. So that is testament to the type of politics. We do understand that for some people, it's going to take a bit of a time for them to adapt to this new type of politics, because for them, for some of the people, politics is all about theatrics, spectacle. But for us, we think that that type of politics has not taken us anywhere. So that is why we've got a politics that is driven by Ubuntu, driven by spirituality, driven by a sense of love for our people. Hence, we do not hate parties. Rather, we disagree with certain parties. Hence, we even do not hate even the ones that we're holding accountable. So that is why, even if, for example, we've been holding the president accountable, we'll never insult him. But we stick on the facts to say, but Mr. President, this is what the Constitution requires. This is how you've fallen short on the Constitution. Therefore, you need to be held accountable in this particular manner. But at the same time, we are not a party that is, behaving in a manner that is foreign to the culture and the norms and the traditions of South Africans.
Speaker of Parliament, you were talking about serving the people, and people are in reference to all the allegations there, and I'll leave them to that, allegations as they are. There is the element of what's going on in court, and to be arrested or not to be arrested, and how you would answer to a particular case. Bantu Holomisa having, in an instance, I think years ago, having written a particular letter to Parliament already and highlighted this particular issue. And here it is now, and it's having an impact on Parliament, it's having an impact on the institution that you're in, it's having an impact on the kind of things that people will be voting for. What's your take on the sort of just turmoil that's in and around the Speaker of Parliament, either to the role she's playing, the leave she's taken, or the instance of the allegations that are floating around her?
Denzel, we need to speak the truth on this matter. Let's not allow the ANC to play with us, because in 2021, rightfully, the General Holomisa shared that letter with all of those allegations, everything that now the Speaker is suddenly being held accountable for. Doing from the side of the Speaker, there must be accountability. But it must not be accountability that is seemingly, not consistent and seemingly not about making a person account because she did wrong. Rather, she's being made to account because maybe there's this Takatso deal that, they were pushing. And in the past 2 weeks, the Speaker has given directions to the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises to act in a particular manner, to subpoena the documents, and that eventually led to the collapse of that particular deal. So would not want Tina as a party to actually celebrate a case whereby there's state interference or there's political interference, or the question of what is currently happening with the Speaker has got nothing to do with law and order. But because if it had got something to do with law and order, why was there no action in 2021 when this was made public? Why is it only now, 3 years later in 2024, and shortly after the question of, the Speaker's role in stopping the Takatso deal, came about? So we would want a country whereby all people are held accountable for whatever transgressions, but would always be cautious and raise our concerns when seemingly that accountability, it is not done in good faith, or it is rather the ruling party fighting their political battles using state institutions.
Let's get to the point where I ask you, what's next? Where are you going next? You spoke about heading to KZN. Political parties are heading to KZN. Where's and I don't want to ask you where's your growth path, because you are campaigning equally in all the provinces, and that's what the ATM is doing. And I think political parties are also doing that. And I mean, there's an understanding that I just showed the figures of where you grew from 2 provinces, KZN and the Eastern Cape, where you would have got, and now you are much, much broader with that. Just for the next couple of weeks before we have an election, where are we going to see you, and what is different from what you're going to be saying than other political parties are going to be saying?
On what we are saying is that with the country with the highest unemployment rate, highest inequality, over 30 million people, which is close to 60% of the population living below the poverty line, we need fundamental changes to the economy. We can't just want to glide, and want to be, so sweet and, posh when it comes to the question of dealing with these problems. We need to confront the problems directly. So that is why we are calling for a fundamental transformation in the economy. Number one, by making sure that we produce goods here in South Africa, because we've got so many factories. If you go to Mthatha and some parts of Port St. John's and Sikisiki, there is, the infrastructure of factories. And you'll remember that when there were factories around Mthatha, Timbaza, Qwaqwa, and Brokonsveld, there were jobs that were there because we were consuming what we are producing. But currently, all of those factories, the physical infrastructure is not there. We're importing nonsensical things such as toothpicks. whereby, in our view as a ATM, we should be building capacity in the country to produce goods in the country, and that is how you create jobs. The reason why many countries they don't suffer this job issue, it is because they've got industries, they've got factories that are there. We as a country, we are importing umbrellas, we are importing sneakers from China, whereas we should be producing goods here in our country. So that's the first issue. The second issue, it is setting aside government contracts less than 10 million to SMMEs, because SMMEs are known to the biggest creators of jobs. But in our country, more than 80% of government spending goes to big business, and SMMEs are scrambling for less than 20%. And linked to that, we're also saying that it must be law that 50% of all government departments, agencies, or whatever, they spend more than 50% of their budgets or of their budget on SMMEs, because once you have an SMME driven economy, you are going to have diverse players in the economy, because our economy is characterized by very few players who are dominating the economy. That is why, just think about any industry. Banking industry, you won't exceed 7 commercial banks that are dominating that space. Financial services industry, if you count the companies that are there, you won't go above 7 companies. Go to the telecommunications, the same thing. That is why you find that the money in our country is circulating amongst very few hands. So to make sure that the money circulates amongst different hands and you have got diverse and various players in the economy, you need to be clear as a government to say you are going to tilt government spending towards SMMEs. And linked to that, again, it is the issue of agriculture. We're of the view that there's so much land in our country and people eat at least 3 times a day. Therefore, we need a food security that is anchored on the people rather than a food security that is anchored on few farmers. So when we were growing up, Kutsol, I remember, there was a tractor that used to come every January and would farm in our garden, Asemasimini, and that is how we're able to feed ourselves based on what we farmed in our gardens. Currently, many people in our country are complaining about the rise in food prices. Because there's an increase, the increase in food prices is basic economics, in the sense that once you've got very few suppliers and the demand is high, the price is going to go up. But once you increase the suppliers, then price is going to go down. So that is why you're of the view that to increase now the suppliers of food in our country, we need to invest now in farming, in terms of making sure that every household there is one farm. That's why we've got a policy of saying one household, one farm. And we ensure that all of these emerging farmers are given shelf space, because we've got so many farmers across the country, black farmers who are trying to make a living or grow in that sector, but they can't grow because Pick n Pay, ShopRite, and all of these big retailers, they prefer farmers that they align to. So that is why we've got a policy that is saying 50% of every produce that we find in a ShopRite in Port St. John's must come from the emerging farmers from Port St. John's. So that is how you create diverse players in the economy, because the root causes of unemployment, inequality, and poverty in our country is that the economy is structured in a manner that it is circulating in very few hands. So that is why you need to break those oligopolies and monopolies. And the way to do that, you need the government to actually preside over the private sector. Not what we see now, whereby the government is actually afraid of the private sector. Look at the question of the rand manipulation. The government is doing nothing when it comes to holding the banks accountable. But if you had a government that was presiding over the private sector, you would hold the private sector accountable. There would be no case whereby Huawei, which is a foreign company, comes to South Africa, operates in South Africa, does not employ a single South African. But you would have a case whereby companies know that when they come to operate in South Africa, they need to operate in line with our national interests. And the way to do that, it is to create jobs.
Vuyo, I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to promise, Vuyo, to bring you back as we do with all the other political parties. And closer to the election, Vuyo Zungula, we're going to have one of those big interviews where we'll then discuss every single aspect that you've been dealing with on the road. Thank you so much for coming back.
Always
Our perspective.
Always a pleasure, my brother.
And I have your number. Vuyo Zungula, President of the ATM, talking to us. There's an update. Let's take a break.